You ever have a moment where you realize that where you are is not where you want to be and you just can't figure out how to make a change? When I think back to July when I started this channel, that was exactly where I was. And here we are at week 19 of Nate's Growth Lab, where I am transparently doing all of the things to radically transform my life in the best way possible. I made a commitment to doing a 52-week challenge where every day I bring myself to this camera and I update you all on where I'm at in that process. And through it, share some of my learnings and gleanings in the process. So for week 19, the thing that I'm thinking about is that exact moment of the, oh shit, where I'm at is not where I want to be, and how do I make a change? And what I'm thinking about is something that I call the personal audit. It's where you look at all the different aspects of your life and look at the places where you can make changes and set goals for the future. So, for those of you that are familiar with the term of audit from like the IRS audits, which nobody ever wants, don't come for me, IRS, it means taking an honest, hard look and accounting for what's on the books. And that can be, when it comes to a personal thing, it is what are the ways or what are the actual things on the books? How are you showing up in your life? The real honest, hard truth. And back in July, that's what I did is I just said, you know what? I need to take an honest, hard look at where I'm at in my life and also write down where do I want to be so that I could start measuring the gap between the two. And so, for example, what that's looked like is actually taking an honest, hard look at how I'm working towards achieving the goals that I say that I have, where I'm at right now versus where I see myself being, so that way, day by day, I can make incremental changes and improvements to move me in the direction of my goals. And with that example, I think about a boat at sea or a boat in a river. When a boat is in a river and it's not using its rudder, it's just going with the flow. And it ends at whatever destination the river ends at. Almost often than not, that's ending at the sea where you're off and about your way. When I think about this, when it comes to personal or professional lives, there are two ways that I found that we sort of end up in two different types of situations. One, you're in the boat, you pull up the rudder, and you're just going with the flow, letting the river take you wherever it wants to take you. And other times, we find ourselves using the rudder in the wrong way. We use the rudder to steer us to fight the river because we are trying so damn hard to stay in a spot that we don't actually belong in or that isn't serving us for our highest purpose. And we're using every little bit of energy we can to stay in that one spot when the river is saying, keep going. What's interesting is what happens when you start using the rudder to guide you in the direction to move down the river faster and with less energy and with more precision. And that's what I'm getting at with this idea of a personal audit. It's how could you go from just aimlessly floating along to moving with significant precision in everything that you do. And last week I talked about habits and the importance of habits, and what I'm noticing for myself is that the more that I'm intentional about those habits, they create secondary habits, and it creates a situation where, my goal was to read a few pages from a book every night. So if I layered that onto the types of books that I was reading, it meant that before I go to bed, I'm nourishing my mind with something that leads towards a bigger goal that I have. And it's interesting what happens is like it changed my priorities. So when I didn't have a priority and I still had these lofty goals, I'd find myself on the couch watching TV till I knocked out, and then I'd randomly wake up in the middle of the night and then crawl in my bed and then wake up in the morning and start my work day and then hamster wheel, hamster wheel, hamster wheel. By making that little adjustment, I noticed it last night. I got home from a very busy day of programs and events and seeing people, and I laid on the couch to watch TV. And I was like, okay, well, I have about 30 minutes of time that I budgeted for TV, so I'm gonna find something to watch. And in the back of my mind, I was like, but I'd rather be reading the book that I'm working on. And I got about 15 minutes into trying to find something on TV, and I'm like, this is a waste of time. And I jumped in bed and I opened my book and I started reading, because that's actually what I wanted to do. Because in my mind, I recognized that that was bringing me closer to my goal than watching mindless TV. Don't get me wrong, there's something fantastic about vegging on the couch every once in a while, but when you are working towards something so important to the essence of who you are, that becomes the guiding light and the priority. And so what I've noted, that's the one big thing that I've noticed that's made a tremendous shift this week in how I'm approaching things. Something as simple as, like I mentioned last week, getting up in the morning and taking a shower at the start of the day versus like at the moment where I have to go out and be around people has made a tremendous shift. Not that, like, I'm funky and things like that during the day, but just that being mindful about where and when I do the things that I do. It's creating so much space for me to think about and plan and dream about the things that I actually want to do. And so at week 19, I'm thinking back to that guy that was like sleep deprived and like, what the fuck is this reality that I'm living in? And I think about where I'm at now. By no means am I where I want to be at the end of this challenge, but I'm able to measure my growth. And I think that this is one of the most important things because, as I was talking about previously, the idea of motivation and how you find motivation when it isn't there is being able to reflect on how far you've come. And for me, doing this series, but yeah, if I can reflect back on how far I've come in just these few weeks, but I've actually started to zoom out a little bit more and reflect on how far I've come over the past 10, 20, 30 years. I'm 41 now. If I think back to when I was 11 years old, the year after that, I was getting kicked out by my mom and bouncing around for years on end. And if I think back to that 11-year-old, 12-year-old version of me and the life that I was living then and what belief systems I had for myself to where I am today, I can't even begin to put it in words in a short form YouTube video about how much has changed. The other thing around that specific part about who I was back then to who I am now, and something that I'm thinking about, is the ways in which we carry the baggage of our past with us into the future. And something that I'm working on this week in particular is being very honest with myself about how and when that baggage shows up, and how and when I walk into a room, chest out, confidence is all hell. There's still that 11, 12-year old version of me walking into that room as well. And what I'm trying to focus on now is the strength that that 11 or 12-year-old had and how to carry that and not the trauma. We get so wrapped up in our story of victimhood. We all have them. It doesn't matter if you're a trust fund baby or you grew up on food stamps and government assistance like I did. We all have our baggage, and the gift in that is seeing the resilience and strength that comes with it. So if I think back to that 12-year-old that got put out with 7 days worth of clothes and one pair of Payless shoes that the dog had chewed up, to where I am today, that's a tremendous growth. And to think that that 12-year-old version of me was able to still graduate high school at 17, to go on to be in the military and have a successful military career, to start a urban agricultural startup, to working in the work that I'm doing now, to where I'm going beyond this, unimaginable. So when you zoom out, there's so many wins, but then when you zoom in and look at life under a microscope and pay attention to the minute by minute, you start to find the places where you can have incremental gains. And that's one thing that I'm really focusing on in this time period is the incremental gains and the places where my personal audit can be used in the highest and best way. So once again, welcome to, if this is your first time tuning in, or if you've been along for the journey, welcome to Nate's Growth Lab. We are on this journey together. I'm in it with you. You all are in it with me. And till next time, I hope that you, if you haven't done it yet for yourself, you take on a personal audit and really get granular. Write that shit down. Write it down. Write the ugly down and write down the good. and then write down where you want to be and be very specific about where you want to be. It's not enough to say, I want to be successful in a year. What the fuck does that mean? Be specific. In a year from now, I want to be speaking on stages with thousands of people in the audience about topics that are near and dear to my heart and that speak to and inspire the people around me. Specific, and start tracking that growth. Well, start working backward from a year. Where do you need to be? And I'm saying you, but I'm talking about me. What are the individual steps that you need to take in order to make that a reality? And be unfuckwittable about working towards those goals. It makes it so much easier to say no to the things that don't move in that direction than to follow along the river and be carried along the banks where you don't belong or where it's not towards your life's purpose and your life's goal. So, with that, thank you for tuning in. I encourage you, if you are curious about this idea of taking on a 52-week challenge to make yourself unrecognizable, get on it. I'm grateful for the path. It's still scary as hell to get on this camera each time and share with you all what's going on in my world. But I know that this is a part of me being accountable to myself and accountable to the people that I care about. And I fucking care about all of y'all as well. So, till next time, see you later.